in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity, tomorrow never certain. What dwells behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble from LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannon could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest and the righteous in your corners.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. How's it going, Dr. Thunder? Can you hear me?
I can. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I'm doing very well. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Getting Ish Done. We're continuing the conversation today. Very important conversation. Go ahead and click that like button, share, subscribe if you've not already. Click the notification bell and all that good stuff. We're talking about rearing humans, good humans, successful ones, good children, kids, or whatever. What do we call them? You call them children, you call them kids. I guess kids is shorter. I guess people tend to call them kids. Is it child or kid, children or kids? Okay, so last episode, part 1, and we're reviewing the video by Benjamin. No, it's Patrick Bet-David. Benjamin. Shout out to him, Valuetainment. And some of the highlights from last time were that the time spent and the memories formed, right? Typically, not what people would expect. In other words, one-on-one time is important was the overall principle, right? One-on-one time spent is very important. And the idea that we kind of explored further was that, memories that you form in terms of what was more profound, meaningful to you, as you look backwards, tend to be, if I were to generalize it, are not based on what you may call, let's go to Niagara Falls and have and create memories. Let's all travel over here, or let's all do this particular activity and create memories. It tends to have nothing to do with, it sometimes has nothing to do with the group. In terms of, it may just be one-on-one, you and your dad, you and your mom, you and a sibling, and also not the external environment, not Niagara Falls, not anything. Could be in your kitchen, could be in a motorcycle, as you were saying, going to Dairy Queen, right? It could be Dairy Queen.
That's right. That's right.
So it's something I want you to notice at least. And obviously there were other things mentioned in terms of like competition and whatnot, rearing your kids in that way. But today we're going to continue, unless you had some other opening remarks vis-a-vis what we went through last week or anything else.
Yeah, that and I that whole making memories business is very, it's hard to take. It's just not how that works. And by the time that you get everybody posed for the pictures, you've created something artificial. It's not what it is that you actually want to remember. So yeah, there is that.
Got it. So let's go ahead now. Watch the right movie with your kids. This one should be interesting. Not sure where exactly he's going with it. Take a step back here just so that it's lined up properly and we can transition into it correctly. Let's go.
with them, eventually it'll create a better relationship with them. Choose the right movies to watch with your kids. I'm a big movie guy myself, and I love choosing the right movies to watch with them. So we have this game that we take turns. Every time he has a movie, then he has a movie, then she has a movie, then it's my turn. Every time it comes to me to pick a movie, my movies have lessons behind them. So then it's like, oh my gosh, here we go. They start off not liking the movie. At the end, guess what? They end up loving the movie. Every single time I pick a movie, no, I don't want to watch Remember the Titans. Please, Daddy. Wow, Daddy, I love this movie. I don't want to watch Walk the Line, Johnny Cash. Why is this a 2.5-hour movie? And then they say, wow, it makes sense. So Johnny Cash, Walk the Line, phenomenal movie I watched with the kids a couple weeks ago. And there's a couple parts in that movie. One is that the movie teaches you about drugs, teaches about the wrong friends, teaches you about a father that's abusive and alcoholic and the power of what alcohol does to ruin families. It teaches you so many different things. Where, you know, persistence, if you love somebody, persistence, hey, June, marry me, June, marry me, June, marry me, June, and patience and family working together, and brother, you know, the brother left and the other brother was left by himself, and the accident that happens to Johnny Cash's brother felt, oh, God, I can't believe that. You guys got to work together as a team, never leave your buddy alone. There's so many messages to it. Remember the Titans. Daddy, what's the big deal if whites get on one bus and blacks? I said, it's not a big deal. We all have to work together. We're brown. We're Iran. You're Middle Eastern and you're white. What are you talking about? We're not black. We're not white. We're brown. We're confused. You got a white mom who married a Middle Eastern dad. So we're like a little bit of everything. Okay, so but why is it it's not a big deal. Why? Look how they work together. Look what happened. Look what happened when he got injured. They still have to come back. You still have to win. You still have to figure out a way to do it for the right people. Oh my, this is such a great guy. I love this story. So choose the right movies. I have a list of movies that I go through with my kids. It's a long of the story.
Is that a random list?
So choose the right movies. I have a list of movies.
Oh yeah, they just picked the first whatever on Netflix or whatever.
That I
right.
It's a long list of movies that I'm going through with my kids. I'm on like movie number 10 right now, but each of them have a lesson. Make a list.
He picked it. He picked from the racially sensitive. What is it? It's like Black History Month, and it's all.
Are you a movie guy yourself?
Oh yeah, very much so. Very much so. How about you?
Not I like movies. I just very, very, very picky. More so than I ever was. I watch the last movie I watched was Joker. So that was years, that's when it came out, right? So that was what is that, 2018 or something? No, yeah, I think so. It's been that long, or maybe, yeah, it's been a while. So I just very rarely I listen for, you know, what people say, you know, in terms of recommendations, and I kind of filter it through. If I hear it in different places that I kind of trust and such, then I'll invest the time into it, because I got to focus a lot into the movie and blah blah blah. It doesn't really matter. But the ultimate is it would have to be a no, but it's a qualified no. Is that I really like movies, but I'm very picky with the one that I'm gonna watch, if that makes sense.
It sounds like you don't actually like movies.
Well, that's ultimately the way to put it. The reason why I say no, because in the past, you know, like, yeah, I mean, I like movies. Like, I remember, like, The Matrix, for example, when it came out, late 90s, and it's like great movie. I love movies, but I don't necessarily feel the need to see them these days, because it's almost like I've seen it all, and I need something to be particularly profound. Otherwise, it just seems like a total waste of my time. That's just that. There's no real reason for it. Perhaps no real principle behind it. It's just where I'm at the past decade or so. But what are your thoughts about his the movie thing? What I did notice is he didn't go the what I would consider just low-level family bonding time with it, which is like, okay, well, why does it have to be a movie? Or it's a good way to, it's also good that way, but, you know, what is the real point here? Like family bonding time, is how does that lead to successful kids? That is, in other words, that is assumed, right? Yeah, you gotta have bonding time, right? But you know what? But he's using it as a teaching tool, saying, okay, these particular movies, right? It's just saying watch the right movie, and there are all these lessons in the movies that he's trying to transmit. What are your thoughts on that? And what is how do you watch? Since you're a movie guy, I'm sure you do watch movies with your son. And yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So I do, like movies a lot. I think that the right movie can teach certain kinds of values and principles and that kind of thing, in a way that it's just because of the sort of proximity effect with the kids. You know, people naturally will sort of tune out the people that they're most familiar with. And a usual thing that I do in my teaching is, you bring in people that say the stuff that you want said, right? So it's really you talking to them, but they think it's somebody else telling them this stuff. So then they listen more, and so fine. So a movie kind of gives you a little bit of that. And then, it's entertaining. I mean, I like movies because, the music and it's like all of the stuff converging, the imagery, the plot, the story, all of there's a lot of things that go together in a movie. And, so I dig all of that stuff. So he was talking about Walk the Line, and it's interesting because, Manosphere, right? So he's talking about, Cash, is, one of the things that he learned is to be patient and keep asking the woman over and over to marry him. I don't know if that's that might not be but actually I think what the issue was actually in that movie, because I think that, they made a good pair, but the issue was that she wasn't going to marry, a drunk addict. That's why, and that's why, and she didn't think it was serious. So hopefully the moral of the story is not to keep asking somebody that keeps telling you no to marry him. Permanently, put yourself in the friend zone. Hopefully that ain't it. But yeah.
What is your favorite movie of all time, Dr. Thunder?
My favorite movie of all time. So I'm the kind that really, really likes movies. So I've seen a ton of movies. And so it'll be easier for me to give you like a kind of a top 5. All right. So close to the top is Shawshank Redemption. There's just something about that movie, and yes, the story is hopeful, and the dude never gives up, and it's he turns a really crummy situation into something triumphant, and there's all of that happens. But the way that the story is told, and it has a sort of haunting kind of pacing, and it's very poetic, and it has a certain aesthetic, a certain energy that is just permeates the film. They did a really good job of sort of maintaining the same sort of, some movies you watch and it's like, did that scene really belong there? Like they're really just trying to cram some stuff in, or it's just stuff just doesn't seem to be coherent. But that movie really stays, it's very coherent throughout. So I really dig that movie. Great acting, Morgan Freeman, Tim Robbins. I mean, it's great. It's a great movie. I love all of the Rocky movies. So, And I would extend that to both of the Creed movies, though the Creed movies I don't think are as well done necessarily. They're good movies, but they're not as classic, as it were, as the first 6 movies, and in particular the first 3 movies
Mhm.
or the first 4. I'll say the first 4 Rocky movies. Those are by themselves, and then Rocky 5 and Rocky 6. It's kind of like the nostalgia causes you to say, "Hey, I want to see how the story develops," and then that energy goes through to Creed 1 and 2. And I don't know if you saw, but there's going to be a third Creed movie.
Mm.
But that movie's not really it's not a Sylvester Stallone thing. It's actually
Mhm.
Michael B. Jordan is the director of that.
Gotcha.
So that's
Gotcha.
that's sort of interesting. Yeah, so those are some
Mhm.
I the Hurricane.
Mm.
I like that movie, The Hurricane. And I almost have a separate list for Spike Lee movies
Spike Lee
because
joints.
yeah, because so many of his movies really resonate with me. You know, I don't agree with
Mhm.
Spike very much politically, but his movies are unindictable. They're just terrific. My favorite, probably 3 favorite Spike movies. There is the obligatory Mo Better Blues because of what I do.
Mhm.
But then probably the top 2 of his movies is Bamboozled and Malcolm X. So
Gotcha.
I mean, but there's so many great movies, and it's like hard to do that because
Yeah, yeah.
you could go by
Oh, for sure.
genre. You could say, okay, my favorite sci-fi joints, like I love the Star Trek movies. You know, I love the
Oh, okay.
Star Wars movies.
Okay.
So you could go
Okay.
that way, or you could go, you could go a lot of like superhero movies. We didn't even deal with that. That's a whole kind of thing to itself. So anyhow,
Mhm. Interesting. It seems like I stopped watching movies around the same time that I stopped playing video games. It will
what are
be
you trying to say, man? What are you trying to say?
no, no. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. It's not. And if you ask me, do I like video games? I'll tell you that I like it. That I like them a lot. I'm actually pretty quite good at them, in general, and all that kind of stuff. But I remember the day that I put down. It was I had the Nintendo Wii, and it was a particular Zelda game that I had. Right? I like some RPG games, and also certain fighting games or whatever. The typicals from back in the day: Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, blah blah blah. Right? And I just for some it was I remember I was living in San Pedro, California at the time. That's the south of LA. So I remember the where I was, the room, when I just stopped. I just like stopped playing it. I put it away, and I just never picked it up back since. And the it really turned down. It really just came down to an energy thing for me at some point. Now, having said that, I do watch anime, right, from time to time, right. Something that one I didn't put down because that one you can kind of pick up and just kind of glimpse at. Now that I said that, it's like um, I'll go like 2 years without watching a single thing, and then I may binge an episode if, again, it has been thoroughly vetted, through the vetting system, and this is a solid deal, and you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. Sole provider on YouTube says you gotta watch it. And then I hear it randomly from somebody else and say, hey, you gotta watch this stuff, and then I watch it. And then in terms of like the series stuff, like Sopranos, I watched Mad Men as well. Um, so TV, movies, general, like them. Just drop them one for in a particular time of my life, just for reasons which I'll just say it has to do with energy at this point. But interesting question here by Bob saying, "How do you know when to give up an endeavor?" And I'm assuming that question, perhaps, maybe it just came out of thin air, but perhaps has to do with your talking about chasing or asking over and over the woman.
Mm.
But knowing when to give up, for me, this is one of those kind of what kind of answers could one give to such a question? one would have to then go into examples of when you've seen people chasing things that I don't know. Is it the kind of thing that you can take a crack at? No, I'm asking them. Let's ask meta questions around the question. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So when is it time to give up on something? That actually is a more difficult question than maybe it appears.
Yeah, it is very difficult. Let me start again by talking around it, which is to say, I tend to have long-term plans. If one were to use the word plan just for communication, I tend to have these long-term things that I put on the back burner, or I just take off the stove altogether, put on the counter there, and it's there. I'm watching it. I then swoop down on it, maybe. And the reason why I'm watching it and looking at it is there's a big time and energy aspect of things, which is, you can't do everything at the same time. And I tend to not approach something if it's not going to be beneficial, if I don't like it, if it's not going to work out, all those types of things, right? So I'm not just the kind of, I'm just pick up something today and then drop it, pick it up tomorrow and pick something else, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, there's a set of things that are out there that I find will be beneficial to pursue, blah, blah, blah. However, there is not enough time for me to just do it right now. So I'll put it on the side. And then I'll be kind of strategizing about it, thinking about it, aligning certain things that have to be about it. So certain other things come into place that I didn't even plan for. You make certain connections, or you learn certain skills that you're like, that would be applicable to X. Or you see another opportunity and like, this is a way that I could use this thing that I want to do to reach it. And then at some point I'll just swoop down on it, and then I'll be as ready as ever, and boom, it's done. The reason I said all that is I typically don't have the experience of having things that I'm just kind of going for that I then have to then drop. The only thing that I can think about in terms of individual selling approaches, like you're prospecting a particular client, you're going for, you're trying to close a particular deal, and how do you know when to just be like, hey, this is wasted effort, huge opportunity cost, I need to move on, okay? And for that one, I simply let the intuition tell me, but I prepare a huge pipeline. I'm just talking about basically the spinning plates or abundance mindset type approach, where it's like, okay, you got to have a big pipeline. You got to have many other people to call, many other prospects, similar to you're talking about this marriage thing, for example, right? And hence, you're going to intuitively know, like, okay, cool, this is too much energy when I haven't spent enough energy, prospecting those guys, calling those guys, pursuing these particular avenues, right? So this is the one arena, just off the top of my head, where I can think of, approaching something and then having to drop it. I don't know if you've thought of anything.
Yeah. So this is so I'll take this. I'll take this question on the sort of relationship side.
Mm-hmm.
So you're dating somebody. You're okay. So it took me a long time to figure this out. A long time. Like I was in my mid-30s, or mid-30s, before I actually learned how to walk away from a relationship. Every other relationship I had ever been in, I'm talking about, romantic relationships, right? The girl always left me. And this is pretty common. This is sort of the way that things tend to go. women tend to leave their situations. Men tend to sort of be more resolute, more sort of willing to deal with certain kinds of issues and just accept those. Women tend to try to level up, monkey branch, all that kind of stuff. And also men don't have the same sort of access, so there is that. Women seem to always have access. There's an unending supply of guys for women to go to. So perhaps that makes them less stable, in a relationship, as it were, as far as sticking around. So, but this could be an opportunity to think about that, right? So when is it the right time to walk away? Certainly men have not been, mostly responsible and culpable for the issues in relationships. I think it's probably likely more like a 50-50 thing, right? You have two people, both of them are culpable, responsible for what they've done, what they haven't done, for the way they interact, for the other things that are going on in their lives that they allow to distract them from the relationship or whatever, from being able to or not being able to, communicate well, and all those kinds of things. So I would argue that men should learn how to and when to walk away. And it's a tough thing because of the way that we tend to be wired, and because there seems to be less options for guys. It's like, well, if I give this one up, then when am I ever going to get another girl? Because it's been so long. It was so much time between, when they got that girl, there was like, oh, I lucked out finally, So, so I would say obviously when they start doing things that are disrespectful, if they in any way are not what it is that you want, then you have to sort of count the cost and, cut and run if you have to, if that's the best best decision. Sometimes perhaps issues in a relationship can repair themselves over time. It's not necessarily a sign that you need to split, but when you're talking about significant issues, stuff like, infidelity, or you're talking about, behaviors that are conducive to cheating, as Donovan always talks about. If you're talking about that kind of stuff, then I think that's stuff that's giving you a clear signal. I know that in my scenarios, I always knew that I should split, but I wouldn't do it because I just was scared is not the right word. I was just weak. I was a simp. I mean, I was just letting stuff happen that it's not appropriate. So if you can take that sort of, it's pretty ambiguous what I'm saying, and it's hard to sort of pin down, but if you can take that kind of idea and spread it to anything else that you're doing, could be a job that you have, maybe the employer's disrespecting you, maybe what the expectations are or not what it was that you signed up for. You're working way more hours than they said that you'd be working. They haven't given you the sort of pay raise that they were supposed to give you when they said all of those kinds of things. You can do that, kind of count that stuff and figure out, what makes sense for you and split. And then you can take that sort of same kind of ideal, all of this sort of weighing the positives and negatives of things in what you thought you were going to get versus what you're actually getting, weighing all of those kind of things, and and you can look at, whatever sort type of goal that you have. So for instance, I play a lot of instruments, and you do get to a certain point where you start to actually develop some skills at that other instrument. And so then that's like fulfilling, in itself. But I have started playing other instruments that I didn't continue. So for instance, I started playing bassoon. And most of that was because I dated a girl that was a bassoon player when I was in college. And I was like, hey, well, I can learn how to play bassoon. But I didn't really dig the instrument. I started learning acoustic bass, right? And I learned a bunch of stuff. I could play all kinds of stuff on it. And then I was like, oh, I'm not going to do this. And I decided I didn't want to do it anymore, right? There's a couple other instruments. Oboe was one I was like, well, if I get my oboe thing together, because if you play musicals, and I play a number of musicals, if you're a guy that can play not just the single reed instruments, but also the double reeds, that's, you could be in for, a significant payday, and there's not that many people that can do that well. So I was like, well, this might be a good thing for me to get together. And then I was like, but I don't really want to do it enough for me to, to justify spending the time. Right. So, but stuff like guitar and, bass guitar and keyboard and, the other instruments that I learned after what I consider my primary instruments, saxophone, flute, clarinet, that more stuck, and it became directly related to, jobs that I had, or I was able to get certain particular, jobs. So there was like a reward. It wasn't just me enjoying playing the instrument sitting in my closet. It actually panned out, so, and then that can be its own sort of motivation. And that was a really long answer, but I think that all of that stuff is sort of, it's sort of related. You don't want to get you don't want to get the mixed up, the whole relentless commitment and, perseverant and all this kind of stuff. It's possible to waste that on the wrong stuff. And I learned that with women in my dating history, that you can't apply the same level of, self-sacrifice and commitment and, putting the other person first. You can't do that with everybody. You can't do that with every job even,
so you play a lot of instruments, right?
Yeah.
So the abundance thing also does apply there, where it's like, I guess you could know what to drop and what not to drop because you're doing a lot of things. And you're like, I don't really dig this. Because if you're just rotorless, like, I pick this up and then I put it down. I pick this other thing and then I put it down. And it's like, okay. So I guess that whole thing of you need to be doing a whole lot already.
You have to develop, but the thing is you have to get good at something.
Yeah.
Before I think you get to, before you get to choose not to do anything anymore. It's like, you can't do anything yet. So you really can't be quitting. You better, even if it's something that you hate, you better get good at it first. Then you can decide that you want to do something else. In my scenario, I had already gotten to a certain level. And so if I decide, hey, this next thing that I'm going to do while I'm simultaneously still doing this, primary thing or whatever, this next thing, maybe I want to do it. Maybe I don't want to do it. Then, that's okay, because at least I got, to a certain level, first before I made that choice. That sort of never fully getting started. And I know a lot of people struggle with that, but you have to push past that. You gotta, you have to accomplish something. you know, you got to accomplish something. What's happening? Freed Homie podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with that. And I almost want to go behind the question, because when I hear a question like this, I'm always like, well, why are you talking about dropping something? Is it the case that you just have so many things that you're doing and you just like have, you know, it's just is this now you're picking up extra instruments like you're saying, or picking up extra hobbies, or you're picking up trying to pick up extra skills, and you're like, that's one thing. But if you're just like, oh, I need to go down this path, and then you know, in other words, you haven't completed one particular journey, and then I have to ask, well, why are you doing that? Why are you not completing stuff, right? Because, you know, I was almost tempted to go that route of, well, you should never quit. If you're on the path where you haven't actually acquired something and you know it's a skill. For example, like what Bob is saying here says, you know, learn a new skill, learn how to speak well, new language, and play an instrument. So, okay, well, the instrument is kind of integral to something that you're, let's say you want to be a musician, or you want to get better at a particular, you play one instrument right now, you play the drum, you want to pick up some other percussion instruments because you think it'll give you more opportunities and you can tour with more bands. Well, then it's like, well, is that particular, are the opportunities starting to come? Are you picking up the instrument, or is it taken away from your drum stuff, and blah blah blah? Right?
Or maybe you get the tour with the band and you like hate the band. Man, I thought this was going to be fun. I thought I was going to actually enjoy doing this. I can't stand this. And then it's like I learned this instrument so I'd have an opportunity to play in that band, and now I hate that band. That could be a reason for you to say, you know what, I had a good run. I mean, I made some money. You know, I went on a tour. You know, I saw the world or whatever, but I don't really want to do that anymore.
Yeah, and he mentions being a slow learner. I would categorize myself as a slow learner. People never believe me when I say that. They're always like, "Nah, you're capping." It just seems like I'm a fast learner now because I know a lot of things. You can just think of it as islands of crystallized knowledge, and I can kind of make connections from one island to the next, and there's nothing new under the sun. And this ability to make these connections is what then makes it seem like I'm learning quicker now, right? But it's always been a slow process for me. Why is it slow? It's slow because I like to get to the fundamentals. I don't like to just pick up techniques, tactics. Like, I want to know the fundamental, right? I want to know what the list boils down to, right? I don't like lists of long crap. I want to know what the fundamental stuff is. So that's why I call it slow. But now, because I've learned so many fundamentals, okay, and I can then make the connections from one island to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. Oh, the island of physics to the island of, you know, body physiology, to the island of meditation, to the island of psychology, to the island of economics, to the island of whatever, right? Philosophy and this and that and the other.
Stuff. But the thing at one level, it's all the same stuff. See, that's the thing people don't recognize. And one of the reasons why, you know, the whole university business, you know, the whole like, okay, we're going to get all these different disciplines together and we're going to kind of figure out what's in common, you know, what are the principles that seem to have something to do with each, you know, these disciplines. You actually start to discover that the medium is different, but the concepts are the same. You know, it's very it's uncanny. It's a very you know, if you understand enough about one thing, then you can then it's as if you know something, at least on the fundamental level, about many things. And so, to your point of being a slow learner, of saying you're a slow learner, of course, slow is a relative term. And perhaps when you say slow learner and when Bob says he's a slow learner, we're not really talking about the same thing, right? So you could be a slow learner in that you want to make sure all the bases are covered, so you don't actually count yourself to have actually learned anything until you actually understand it at a granular level, right? Sort of complete level of, of learning, right? Whereas someone else might be saying they're a slow learner because, it actually is taking them like way longer than the average person to learn something that is not a profound, is not something that takes a long time to fully comprehend, right? So you could actually, in a matter of speaking, if what it is that I'm saying is the case, so you could actually, in a way that Bob is suggesting, you could actually be a fast learner, right? In his sort of terminology, what he means by being a slow learner. So that's sort of an interesting, when I hear people talk about being a slow learner or being a fast learner, especially when somebody says that, oh, I'm a fast learner. And then it just makes me wonder, like, I think you're glossing over a lot of stuff. I think you don't actually have like a depth of understanding of what it is that you're talking about. And then just asking them a few questions reveals that's almost always the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And find a good teacher, Bob, or find the right teacher, or find the right mode, because if you take math, for example, right? Most people struggle with math. It turns out that that's one of the most fundamental things in terms of, what cuts across all disciplines, right? You were talking about fundamentals, right? What's kind of axiomatic? Well, math itself is about axioms, right? So I find that there are a lot of bad math teachers out there. It's not just that people are just horrible inherently at math. And when I say math, by the way, I mean math. I don't mean arithmetic or algebra. Those are techniques. And I don't necessarily expect people to get what I'm saying, because everybody just thought, well, isn't arithmetic and algebra and all that stuff math? It's like, well, no, that's not what math is. Math is the fundamental stuff, okay? It sounds more daunting when I put it that way, but the fundamental stuff is actually more relatable if you get the right teacher to kind of teach you the fundamental stuff. And by fundamental, one could say, well, something that approaches fundamental even. Let's say, for example, you're talking about algebra, right? When they show you all these X's and Y's and Z's, they forget to tell you that these things are going to get plotted on the Cartesian coordinate or a certain set of coordinates that they can at least give you. Now you can have infinite number of dimensions, which are these coordinates I'm talking about, but we all know X, Y, and then we know Z for the third dimension, right? And that any equation that you're given is going to form some kind of a shape. And that's why, when you look at, because when you're trying to relate one thing with something else, the rate of change of interest rates over time, the rate of change of speed of a particular car, the path of a particular projectile when it's shot through the air, what is the path that it takes, distance that it covers, the time, acceleration, this, that, the other, all these different things. All these are different graphs. All these are different images. And then the image has a corresponding equation, okay? These MFers just keep on showing you equations and how to manipulate it, never telling you what the hell this is all about, what shape it's supposed to represent. Now, obviously, the different shapes that would then allow you to model different aspects of reality. So something cyclical, you have like the sine curve or the cosine curve, because it goes up and it goes down. And you modify that to fit whatever type of description, type of phenomenon, natural phenomenon you're trying to model, right? So this is what I mean by math, right? Not so fundamental. I'm not being very fundamental right now, but I'm just saying that this is coming closer to the fundamentals of math, rather than me just hitting you with the laws of trigonometry. I never telling you why. Okay, at least in trigonometry, you have to see the curves and stuff. But in algebra, they just give you equations and how to manipulate it. And it's just like, why am I doing this? So find the right teacher and find the right means by which you can learn. today in YouTube or in the world of YouTube, you're no longer, shall we say, tied down to your local teacher and his inadequacies, right? You can find the best teacher. There's this guy in, I think his name is Walter Levin or something. No, maybe it's not Walter, but his last name is Levin in MIT, and he's one of the best physics teachers out there. All his freaking lectures are on YouTube, right? So you can go and you're like, and he takes it to, he's very good at what he does and all that kind of stuff. So yes, definitely find the right teacher is something that I would say as well. Now let's see here. Let him wrap up with the movie deal. Of course, it's been an hour already, and we're not even done with one yet.
Figure out a way to do it for the right people. Oh my, this is such a great guy. I love this story. So choose the right movies. I have a list of movies that I go through with my kids. It's a long list of movies that I'm going through with my kids. I'm on like movie number 10 right now, but each of them have a lesson. Make a list of movies with the right lessons to teach them and start watching a movie and pause. Here's what happened here. What do you think about what happened here? What are your thoughts about? What do you think about what just happened right here? Well, why did this happen?
Some people hate that, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Some people hate that. I used to like to rewind, like, just like, take a rewind, like back in the old cassette tape days, but just kind of rewind the thing a little bit. Like sometimes it's like, oh, what was that? Like, and then I want to rewind and see the scene again. And if I'm watching with somebody, they're like, oh, he just ruined it, But I'm like, if you're just rewatching it, it's not like I fast forwarded and spoiled it. I just went back because I wanted to catch a particular nuance of something. But anyways.
Yeah, my wife would hate that. My wife would hate that. And my son used to do that rewinding thing over and over. And I just got to the point I was like, man, no rewinding. We don't rewind. Because it just goodness, because it would be the goofiest stuff that he'd want to see over and over.
Oh, gotcha.
The goofy like fart jokes and stuff like that. I'd be like, come on, man.
Make a list of movies and watch it with them while processing it with them. All your kids are going to be different. I was different. My sister's different. My kids are different. They're all different. It's very weird how different they are. And sometimes if you have 3 kids, you're typically going to have one that's going to be very reasonable, meaning one kid that you have very easy time doing business with. Everything is so easy with this kid. Just teachers love him, school loves him, friends love him, everybody loves him. It's just a breath of fresh air to deal with this kid. You're going to have another kid that's going to be able to get away with stuff. Like, oh, this person, they know how to kind of get away with things. Oh, look at this, the way she does this or he does this. Look at this. They're very good. And you kind of like, I know what you're doing, but they get away with it anyway because they're charming. Like you have that one seducer, right? And then you're going to have a kid that's going to be very difficult, right?
I was that kid, by the way. That's what I was told.
You were the difficult kid?
No, the one that gets away with stuff. That was it.
Oh, okay.
That can somehow always had like an innocent looking face. And I'm a quiet person, and people just kind of take that innocent looking face and you're a quiet kid. They just kind of take it with, oh, it must be good and holy or nothing but greatness, and obviously I was also intelligent, so people like that too. So people don't expect, in other words, people don't expect that you may be up to some shenanigans is what I'm saying. So I was able to get away with some shenanigans as a result. But not the parents' fault or anything. There's nothing they could have done about it. It just is what it is.
One thing that's interesting is, and I was talking to my dad about this. He said actually kids that are, that lie about stuff, it's actually a sign of intelligence. So because they're learning, because they figured out that they can manipulate things in a particular way. They're exploiting that manipulation. It actually is a sign of pretty high intelligence for them to do that. So if a kid is smart, capable, talented, or has natural ability, then often, at least at some point, it will also accompany being sort of deceitful and kind of testing the bounds by, what they can get away with and all that kind of stuff. That's yeah.
Right? One of the worst things you will ever do with kids is compare them constantly. Why can't you be like this person? I hate it here. Why can't you be like that friend? Why can't you be like this? I'm like, dude, I am not like everybody. I'm very different than everybody. So the first time one of my kids had experienced that in school, and he came back and said, they call me weird, they call me different, they call me this. I said, my entire life, your dad's been called weird. So, and we had that conversation together. So, try to do your best. Like in the game of business, leading salespeople, leading people, period. You're always going to have someone that's going to be your best producer that's easy to work with, but you're also going to have some people that are not. You got to figure out a way to lead people regardless of their personalities and do your best to adjust to lead that kid, not the same way that you lead this kid and that kid, because they're all going to have different personalities and different motivators. Create a current.
This one is one of like my, what he just said about the different personalities and such. Something that I think I naturally excel at. And then because I naturally excel at it, I ended up kind of studying it more deeply, right? In terms of, such that I don't try to force, certain people into boxes that they don't belong anymore. Because some of these differences that you're talking about can be subtle, but subtle is significant, which is something I heard once, and I like it. Subtle is very significant when it comes to people and personalities, right? Some slight something that you may just see on the surface as a slight deviation is very significant in terms of how the kinds of choices that they make and such. What people tend to have in terms of, just to put a psychological frame in it, is we have differences in our attentional framework, in what we pay attention to, right? What we pay attention to, what we see first, and what we will comment on first. Like, something may happen and I could just keep quiet, but the person next to them can't help but to be like, oh, I noticed this or something like that, right? And these subtle differences you should take into account. Well, first of all, the first thing to learn is, as he said, they're gonna be different. But then from after that, how are they different? And what can you expect from one versus the other? If you have this kind of quiet, introverted, maybe creative kid, stop trying to force him to do certain things which he's not gonna do. Okay. And then if you have the personality type ESTP, these are the guys that are always just moving. They're always moving and running and jumping and this and that. And they're the ones that show up and be like, hey, the party has arrived, ladies. That guy, right? That guy is that guy. Okay.
That's my son, actually.
Well, there you go. If you got an ESTP kid, that's an ESTP kid. Don't try to force your INTJ kid to become an ESTP. It's insane. There's two different instruments here, gonna play two different parts in this orchestra here of the music family of humanity, and you need to understand that. Now you have just one, right? So you don't have to deal with different types there, but I'm sure in life in general, whether it be employees or having to lead people, this is something that I've noticed, and I know. Speaking also of the fast learner versus the slow learner type stuff, there are people whom can use their intuition to. So you have some lazy intuitives out there. Now, this may sound crazy to you, Dr. Thunder, but intuitives actually have a tendency to be lazy. In other words, that they can be lazy because they can they can wing things. Okay. Now they don't. This is going to be bad if they keep on doing this. But while they're still kind of immature, before they've kind of wisened up, okay. And as you were saying, in one of your videos about wise beyond your years type stuff. Yeah, some people waste years and not wise up on this particular thing, right? And they keep on using their intuition to wing through things, where they can kind of see things, see certain patterns, but they don't really do the deep work to get down to the to the bottom of everything. I noticed that
it's the same issue with folks that have a lot of natural ability. So if you have
Mhm.
like a lot of natural ability as a musician, for instance, and you didn't really have to try that hard, the tendency, and or you're able to sort of skip a bunch of steps that other people would
Mhm.
have to, you know. So the tendency is for that to leave a lot of holes in your musicianship, right? That will eventually become exposed. You'll
Mhm.
eventually get exposed, but
Mhm.
you know, you just may not know when you're going to expose. Of course, you're not going to know because you don't know what you don't know. It's one of the reasons that why you want to find a good teacher that is going to understand, that will understand that. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Let us see here. Create a currency. Yes, this is an interesting one. Sounds like.
Currency in your house. And what I mean by currency in your house is what is valuable for them to get in return from you what they want. So some homes, it's you got to clean the house, you got to clean this, you got to clean that, you got to clean this. You're essentially teaching your kids to be cleaners, right? Which is fine, but you're teaching them to do that. I want to incentivize, like to me, chores are things you're supposed to do, right? You don't get currency on chores. There is no currency on collect your Lego, clean it up. Can I get $5 for cleaning this? No. That's what you're supposed to do. I don't want them to think you get paid $5 for cleaning the floor because later on they're adults cleaning the floor because when they were 7 years old, daddy paid the money. I'm not doing that. We're not doing that. That's a chore. Let's go clean it up, right? You go read a book. Okay, you finish a book. How many pages you read? 20. Perfect. 20 points. That's your currency. If you want to get a video game, it's 400 points. Great, that's 400 pages. Oh, let me go read 400 pages. It's a method of currency. Exercise, currency. Reading the book, currency. Whatever it is, whatever currency you decide as a family, husband and wife, or you're by yourself, whatever currency you decide, your kids are gonna like it more if they have a set of clear expectation of what to do to get XYZ. One kid's gonna wanna go to Disneyland for a day. Phenomenal. Create the currency. He's gotta read 20 books, 80 books, 40 books. I don't care what it is, but they have to do something. Once that set of clarity is there, you'd be amazed how much more your kids will perform because it's very predictable currency that's being used in your house instead of one day it's this, one day it's this, one day it's this, one day it's this. And eventually they're like, mom, I'm done. I don't care. Do whatever you want to do. They won't take you seriously. Create a very consistent currency for everybody. Ask you.
What do you think about that one?
Yeah, that's interesting. I like the idea that, you don't teach them that, by cleaning the floor that you give them $5, because you don't want them to think that they're going to be janitors. That's kind of an interesting. That's an interesting point. I like this idea of having them read, and you assign a certain amount of currency or exercises or stuff like that. That's an interesting take on that. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I think it's.
Do you
got
give
some
your get an allowance now or any kind of thing like that where he's putting in work for something? Do you do that?
No,
Or that's more later?
I'm sort of because I didn't get that when I was growing up. We didn't have like an allowance. We didn't we didn't get paid for doing chores. It was all about duty.
Mhm.
This is it doesn't matter if you want to do this. This is what you do, and I don't want to hear any complaining about it. You
Mhm.
should and even like there's starving kids in China business. This is why you should eat your food. They didn't do that either, and I tend to not want to do that. He's not going to recognize the difference between how he lives and other people live anyway, and how much privilege that he has. Because that's the nature of privilege. You don't realize that you're privileged,
Mhm.
because this is your life. You never lived in another person's life. It's not trading places, right? Yeah, so I don't tend to do that, but I think that there is some merit to what it is that he's suggesting, in particular with this sort of rewards. You know, you want a video game or you want something you know that they want. You know, how can you sort of leverage that to get them to do some stuff that you want them to do? Not some, you know, free labor for you, like, you know, but you know, some stuff that's you know, going to be beneficial for them. You know, developing some skills that you know they're going to need in the future.
Got it. Yeah, didn't get the chores. I didn't get the you know, the money for chores and stuff like that either. Seems to be more of an American thing, anyways, right? And
I got spanks if I didn't do the chores. We call them weapons, though. Yeah.
There you go. That was more like it.
That's
and then
the incentive right there. You don't want pain, so do the work.
Then I got shipped out to boarding school after a while, which, by the way, that's something I believe in, especially for boys. Now it's part of it kind of selfish based on my experience. This is again another thing where I will consider the personality of the kid, right? Boarding school was for me. Yeah, like I liked it. It's you know, I wanted to be independent as soon as possible. Have you ever you hear those people that say things about their childhood, not just with nostalgia, but almost like wanting to be kids again, or regret that they're adults? Or, you know, the stupid post on Facebook about, oh, when I was young, I did this, and now I have to go to bed at 8 a.m. or some crap like that. You know, these, you know, NPCs basically, these non-player characters out there that are just like, oh, I'm in this stage of my life that now I get to do this. When I was then, I did that. You know, it's just like they like there's just no life in them whatsoever, other than when they were kids. Meanwhile, they were probably complaining when they were kids too. Now they're just looking back at it. It's like they don't want to live at all. But are you were you I don't picture you being the type to be looking back and wanting to be a kid, but do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think I'm the kind that I would never trade what I've learned for youth, because you know, that whole thing about, you know, youth is wasted on the young, and you know, the fountain of youth, you know, finding this thing where it just reverses your chronological age, well, your appearance of age, but then you're able to maintain the same amount of knowledge, wisdom, and experience and stuff. Well, see, the thing is that it's a contradiction in terms, because it is the time that produced the knowledge, the wisdom, the X, Y, and Z, right? So unless we're talking about becoming vampires, right? You know, so it's inherently problematic. I would never want to trade youth for what I've learned, because I'm going to just make the same stupid mistakes I've made before, because I wouldn't know any better.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you or concur there 100%. So the boarding school thing for me is something that I would consider the personality of the kid. If you know, number one, I don't necessarily think it's the for girls, maybe not super important, right? Again, this is just my way of thinking and how I was raised, right? But I wanted to get out of the house, not because I hated it. And when I was there too, I did kind of miss home and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to get into the world, to be independent, to fall on my face, to win or lose based on my own stuff, to deal with having to be part of or find my place in some kind of weird social hierarchy and all that kind of stuff. And take the ass whippings from the older kids and the bullying and everything. So I mean, like just imagine a boarding school in Africa. I mean, it was normal to me, but I'm just now in context over here in the States now. Yeah, I mean, you guys would have probably thought that this was just pure torture, but I actually liked it. I enjoyed it. I those are some of the best years of my, let's say, childhood or growing up. I think I learned a lot, being stuck in there with those animals, and having to quote unquote fend for myself and wheel and deal and whatnot. And the main thing that came out of that was discipline. Discipline. I was getting discipline at home, but it's a different level of discipline when it's not your parents telling you to do it, right? it's and this crazy drill sergeant type stuff. So it's similar to the military.
Well, it's what is it? It's the jeopardy. The fear of jeopardy, because your parents impose discipline, but you kind of also know that your parents really love you, and they're probably not going to do something that results in your actual death, right? So, but with other people, it's kind of like, well, I don't think that they would kill me, would they? I don't know. So then that's a different level of motivation. It's like, I can't use that, tugging at the heartstrings business, because there are no strings. There is nothing to pull. Oh no. I better get it together.
No strings attached. And actually, I think my wife even my wife independently brought up boarding school, right? Just independently said, well, what do you think about putting the kids in boarding school in Africa when they get to a particular age? Like, it's not even in the US, there's no real culture of boarding schools anyways in the United States. But, take their ass back to Africa, stick them in a boarding school, whip them in shape. And the thing about the personality, it'd be a rare type of thing where it's like, oh, you have this kid with particular challenges and they're kind of sick. They're missing one lung or something. Maybe you don't want to throw them to the wolves like that. But I find that, or if they're just super sensitive, to my future sensitive simp son, yeah, this is for you. I won't send you to boarding school. But anyways, ask your kids about their opinion. This is similar to something that we kind of talked about. Well, it's adjacent to the whole telling them why you make the choices that you make, or telling them why things work the way they work, both from the house, because the way things work in the house is the way they work generally out there in the world. Right? If you have some order in your house, it's going to be a reflection, or the outer world is going to reflect it, or it is reflecting the outer world in terms of the order that is out there. But this is kind of more of a reverse saying you should ask them about their opinion. Now, before I play it, that's if I get to play it at all, we got like 10 minutes. What are your thoughts on this? Because I'm sure he'll have something interesting to say, but this seems on the surface to be self-explanatory. Ask your kids about their opinion. So he mentioned one-on-one. The one-on-one conversation type stuff was the first thing. And in those one-on-one conversations, obviously, it's not just you giving a lecture, right? So, the kid is telling you things as well. And this just seems like a regular type of conversation, right? A conversation comes to mind when I read this number 9 here. Ask your kids about their opinion. A conversation as opposed to a lecture or a seminar, if you will. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me to be a real opportunity. I mean, another thing is like when my son asks questions, real questions, not the why he's not allowed to do what I just told him to stop doing kind of question. But he's been asking me sort of systematically more advanced questions. So something happened earlier this week. Wait a minute. Maybe it was last week. Today's only Tuesday, so it was last week. And so I think my wife sent him downstairs to ask me a question because she thought I would be a good person for him to talk to about that. So the question was, who created God? Okay. Now this is like, for all of the philosophizing and pondering the nature of existence that I've done over the course of my life, and though I was born, I was, grew up Pentecostal, charismatic, non-denominational, whatever. I converted to Orthodox Christianity, and with the apologetics and all of the other stuff, and just my overall sort of outlook on things. This is like a dream come true to have your son come and ask you a question like, who created God, right? And so then sort of pondering how to describe it to him in a way that doesn't eliminate all of the sort of profundity, but so that he can understand what it is that I'm saying. But the thing is that for the fact that he's asking the question, it suggests that he understands things at least at a certain level, right? Because not everybody asks those kinds of questions or even cares about that sort of thing, which is like, a big thing to take for granted. Most people don't do a lot of, navel gazing and introspection, as it were. So when he asked a question, I had my conversation with him and stuff, and then he was sharing some of his opinions or asking follow-up questions, and so I was able to lean in on some of those things, and so it was it was kind of a big moment. It was kind of a big moment for a weirdo like me, an educated lame like me. So kind of a weird thing, but very, very fulfilling moment. Something I'll probably reflect back on for years to come. And guess what? I didn't take any pictures or any video. I don't know if you're muted or something. Maybe the headphones unplugged or something, because I heard.
Yeah,
some noise.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Did you hear what I was saying?
No, yeah, I heard what you're saying. It's just my phone, which I'm speaking from, the battery kind of is getting low, so I kind of turned off the screen. But I guess when you turn off the screen on StreamYard, I can hear you, but I can't speak, or it doesn't. The audio doesn't go into the stream. But I heard what you said. So he hasn't asked you about where kids come from yet, right?
Well, he asked that. He asked that long ago. That's something we talked about.
It's funny how that one always comes up first.
Yeah, at least a few years ago. A few years ago, we talked about that. My son's 9, so yeah, I don't know. Okay. He probably was asking questions about that when he was 4 or 5.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right.
But this question about who created God, I was like, really? Okay.
The where babies come from one. That one too is it does get a wide range of answers. The
storks.
Some are less. the stork, the blah blah blah. I'm more inclined towards a clinical approach, as opposed to.
No, you can do that. What's her name? She's got no hair now. She shaved it all off. She was Kanye West's girlfriend for a while. She's a real light skinned girl.
Yeah, I think I know
she
who you're
passed
talking
for
about.
white. She got like a tattoo on her face now. I can't think
What
of
did
her
she
name.
What did she do?
But with the what is it? The slut walk stuff. Everybody knows who I'm talking about. I just can't think of her name. Somebody will probably put her name in there. But she was in her sort of this is sort of a mock, like, if her kid like asks where kids come from, she's going to tell them that that she likes to get down. Your mommy loves sex and all this kind of. This is the opportunity to talk about how much of a freak she is, So, yeah, you could go that route.
Great. That's what we just find a way to be stupid. I'm not even being a Puritan about it. It's just stupid. It's
it's stupid.
Yeah,
it's
just
it's totally ridiculous.
Super stupid.
Totally ridiculous.
So I've always preferred that. Like, I think the whole, because I've answered that question before.
Amber Rose. Somebody put it in the.
Yeah,
somebody put it in the chat.
It is Amber Rose. I answered that question before, and I think the clinical approach, and this for me is all about me remembering the way that I got the answers and wanting to not to repeat certain types of mistakes, right? Because kids know when you're capping, dude. Unless you're a very good liar. Because what I'm saying is, it's not like they're so smart that they know the answer already, and then you are, that's why they know you're capping. It's because you know you're lying, and unless you're a very good liar, if you're just straight up lying about answers, they kind of know, right? Or if you're kind of just obfuscating or doing some kind of a weird thing, or
human beings have a pretty sophisticated authenticity gauge. It's very interesting because people really can have no education in a particular topic, and they can kind of read that you're full of crap, and that is quite astounding. If you think of the I don't know. I perhaps think that maybe that could be some sort of evidence of a soul, of a spirit, of a something else sort of, involved. That those kinds of senses, that seems to be, a sixth sense, something else. It seems to be something else is operating there other than just, reasoning faculties. Because you don't know anything. You're an idiot. You couldn't even pass. I mean, you got held back 3 times for 6th grade. But still, that person can still tell if you're like full of crap or not. It's like, really?
Yeah, powers of observation are quite keen because it's very important, right? I mean, you talk about survival stuff, right? I mean, the organism is designed, generally speaking, to last long enough to then procreate. And in the environment, one of the most dangerous things is other human beings and their deception, right? So you gotta know, it's not just recognizing snakes and stuff like that. You gotta know when these human beings are around you.
Wait a minute. Now, it seems like you're explaining away these sort of mystical component that I was laying out there. You've boiled it down to evolution.
Yeah, I didn't boil it down, no. Yeah.
I find that I'm kind of tongue in cheek here, because often people will. That's what they do. They'll assume that because you cite what you believe the mechanisms to be, on the more sort of granular mechanisms, or the stuff that we can actually discuss, stuff that represents the stuff that we actually know, right? That we can actually see, because you start talking about that somehow that means that you're dismissing the mystical. But
Mhm.
no, you're not necessarily dismissing the mystical. You're just saying this is how the mystical sort of interfaces with the
Yeah.
physical, right?
And you know my stance that for me it is all mystical. So there's a kind of a false kind of a dance that I think goes on. That I'm not gonna argue with the dance, right? And I'm not gonna necessarily say that everyone should or can come to my view. But when people say, "Oh, you're just carbon," in other words, when people are actually doing the thing which you say that people often think that is being done, right? When people are actually doing that, right? I think it's kind of stupid still. What do you mean just carbon? Okay, what was I supposed to be for it to be more profound and mystical? Like, just giving it a name, dude. There's all this stuff around you. It's all a mystery. It's all a freaking miracle. And then you call it a name and you say, "Oh, it's just X." And this passes for argument, dude. You know that this passes for some kind of they've stated something. "Oh, it's just a chemical response," or "Oh, it's just a." I'm just like, so. And by the way, this type of talk is already far removed from where I'm at. I never leave my little fort of everything is mystical. If you want to put it that way, I want to put it that way. But it's just there's no right. Once you get out of that fort, you're in danger of all kinds of arrows coming at you from people wanting to say it's this and it's that and blah blah blah. So yes, I completely agree. But when it's in good faith, and we can talk about carbon and we can talk about evolution and this and that, without somebody saying, "Oh, it's losing something," as though they know what carbon was. Do you know what carbon is? I mean, it's just atoms. Okay, then. What is a freaking atom, right? That doesn't remove any of the mystery. It doesn't remove anything. It's people are weird like that.
Right, and then when you and then you boil it down to the molecules, down to the electrons and protons, and all that kind of stuff. That still doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's like
what's animating that?
It's like
what's animating that? Why is it?
It is that once something is, that is already the profound mystery and miracle. It is telling me, doing this reductionism, right? Quite practical, shall I say, actual. I'm looking for a particular word. Blatant, explicit reductionism, where you're just dividing it down. I don't know what you think you're doing. In other words, I'm a scientist, right? But I don't know what you think you're doing in terms of trying to explain something away when you're simply just cutting it down as though it is. I don't care if you get down to the quark. It is, and the isness is the for me, it is the whole miracle. Like I immediately just go there and I stay there. I never leave there. Like it's just like I don't get into the now let me start, because it's all a circular argument at the end of the day. You're gonna go around the whole world and you're gonna end up back. Okay, but it is, and that's all there is to it. Anyways,
whatever are at that. Whatever is must have a cause of its existence.
There you go, and it's like
circling back to this question that my son asked about who created God. It's all profound, man. So much heavy stuff.
Just anyways, it's maybe I get particularly frustrated with this one just because for me it's so obvious the error. And again, it's not an error that the quote unquote atheists make or this type of like. I think everybody makes that. When I say everybody, I mean just most people, because religious people do it too, where they make a false dichotomy and then they get trapped. Right? It's like you get trapped because the God of the gaps, right? The gap keeps getting eaten away because you created the God of the gaps. You were the one that put God in the unexplained area, as opposed to just like, dude, is, and this is, stop trying to say, well, God is the thing that God is in the because that stuff, people are just going to keep on eating away at that, and you're just going to keep on retreating and retreating and retreating, and the world is going to be explained away, named away, materialismed away, and now you're left with quote unquote nothing. But you chose to play that game of the creating the dichotomy and such. But really, it's a subjective thing. But by subjective, I mean it's something that you have to realize and experience for yourself. It's not some kind of a thing that I could give you logical arguments about. Oh, I could, and there are people who do things like that. But I don't think it's quite convincing to give people arguments about and then they're going to get led to a particular kind of a profound realization that you don't know what the hell is going on here. It's like, oh, what kind of argument can I tell you for you to realize? Just open your freaking eyes already and see that this shit is. Like, I don't know what kind of. Again, I've seen many arguments, right, and I understand the structure of those type of arguments, but I don't think it gets the people to where they actually got to get to. Just open your freaking eyes. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and like the video one more time. We are gonna do the last one and also perhaps broach another topic tomorrow. We're gonna talk about this, well, not tomorrow, but next week. Okay, and it's probably will be Wednesday next week, right? Not Tuesday again?
Yes. It'll be Wednesday.
Shout out to Vision TV in the building, John Zola in the building, 19 Colin, and everybody else in the building. I think this was a good one. We only went through, I think, about 2 of them, right? And then we parked here. We spent a lot of time on the movie one and also answering the question that Bob raised about knowing when to give up something. For something like that, I always want to go deeper. And I think we went deeper and we found out, okay, there's a learning thing going on there. And then we have to find the best ways to teach. And I like to go to the fundamentals. And I just ended there, talking about the fundamentals, the most fundamental of things, which is about experience. But it's not just about experiences, but it's about experience with it's not just when I say open your eyes, obviously it's not just their eyes they have to open, right? Because people have their eyes open all the time. But for some reason, they don't seem to see that whether or not you go down to the quark or the whatever, or you call it, oh, now it's just plastic, or it's like, it still is, bro. I don't know why people think that this kind of scientific explanation, vivisection, and all this type of stuff removes somehow the mystery, the fundamental mystery of things, or makes it less profound or whatever. I've never kind of gotten that thing. At some point in my life, it kind of very early on, I came to kind of like a pantheistic approach. Not, in terms of just thinking, right? In terms of like, I was like, God has to be everything, right? It was like, I was, it's probably like 6 or something. I'm like, oh, God has to be everything, right? Because, is the power, is this kind of some kind of power outside of God? Like, it's just blah, blah, blah. And that is in line with what I'm saying right now. Not that, pantheism or panpsychism or whatever is a philosophy that I adhere to. But the idea of everything is everything and everything is profound, no matter what you call it or how you can dissect it or what you can get down to, it has always just been like an obvious thing to me. And everything else is just like a tautology going around in a circle to end at the same point again of like still not knowing what the hell you're talking about. Anyways, any last words, Dr. Thunder, or what you got coming on Thunder's Thoughts and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so I just hit 8,000 subs on my channel.
Yay.
Yeah, I guess it was end of last week, so that was very cool. And I've been keeping these early streams, the Car Thunder streams. I've been keeping those going, and that's been very cool. Those have been performing well. And and folks are watching and borrowing my ideas and things, which is fine. I'm an ideas guy, and a thought guy. So that's interesting. That's interesting to me, that people find certain things that I say valuable. So I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been fun. Good stuff. I'm not altogether positive that I'm going to do a new Thunder's Thoughts on Thursday. I thought that I was, but I'm going to be doing 2 streams earlier that day. So because I'll have the Car Thunder in the morning, and then I'm doing a Tadd Dameron concert. Tadd Dameron is an important jazz composer. Played with many of the notables, including Miles Davis and John Coltrane, and played with all kinds of folks. Fats Navarro, lots of folks, and he wrote a lot of compositions which are jazz standards. And so we're going to do a concert, Dr. Thunder Quartet, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5:30 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a concert, and that's going to be this Thursday. So coming up this Thursday. So really looking forward to that. Got a rehearsal tomorrow night for that, so be getting ready. And then I'm likely going to re-release an old Thunder's Thoughts, or there's a number of premiere videos that I could release. So I'm looking at doing one of those 2 things, but there'll be something that plays at 9:30 where I'll be in the chat, either way. So hopefully folks will come back for the regular time, the 9:30 show time. If I do a premiere video, then I can be at 2 places at one time, because I can be wrapping up the live stream, and then also starting a premiere video at the same time. So that's an advantage to doing it that way.
All right.
And then, of course, Case Closed on Sunday. Should be on my channel at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll have a trending, interesting, thought-provoking, sort of trending, pop-ish sort of topic, where we'll, all-star panel, and it's going to be great.
It is going to be great indeed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we're out. Peace.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what was behind the curtain, the face of evil smirking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it, because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it, because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.